So great that you're back for our track performance marketing. And the next session is going to be with Vlad. And the topic is how our ecom marketers switch to first party data to prepare for the death of third party cookies. Vlad, our speaker, let's see, who is he? Vlad has been doing digital marketing since 2000, spending most of time in performance marketing and SaaS. Prior to RedTrack, he led marketing teams of Boston-based World App Inc., ensuring consistent growth from 5 million ARR to 10 million and beyond, and getting multiple times at Inc. 500 and 5,000 list. So, Vlad, I'll clink myself out and let you start.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I always enjoy talking at Digital Marketing Europe event. So today we'll share a bit about our experience of helping digital marketers, mostly across ecom, to switch from using third-party data and pixels like they used to do to actually leveraging their own data and first-party data. And of course, we'll also share a bit how this process will evolve across the whole industry, why it happened, what are the solutions, and how you can prepare to do the same. So let me jump straight into the presentation part. And for the very beginnings, two really important questions. Number one is why everybody's preparing for the death of third-party cookies, and it is real. So in my opinion, it is. We have multiple regulation pressure from GDPR to multiple other regional acts. For everybody here, GDPR probably is more common. We have pressure from technology provider regulations, starting with blocking third-party cookies by Safari, followed by Firefox. With Google Chrome, Privacy Sandbox was postponed till the next year, giving everybody probably another 14 to 16 months of breathing room. And the first really noticeable change that impacted everybody doing media buying, especially in ecom, was iOS 14.5, which changed the way how Facebook treats data that it receives from its pixel. And this will already created the issues of customer journey tracking. And as more and more tools, but basically we're looking for Android to follow the example of iOS, and then Chrome finally blocking third-party cookies and rather unique user agents. All this will force marketers to reconsider how they measure their performance and how they do the targeting, how they do the measurement and evaluation of their channels. And since the pixels will be gone, the data that was provided to them by all those third-party tools will be gone. They need to consider going with the first-party data. And it sounds very complex, but in essence, the first-party data comes from three places. That's the data all the marketers own. It's basically what you collected from your web properties, from your app, in your CRM. Then that's the data that you acquired by getting the feeds from your paid channels, from your partners, updating the data. And then, of course, that's exchange. You typically exchange the data you own with a third party to enrich it with additional meaning. For example, do cross-device attribution, or do user modeling behavior, or do in the future surprise remarketing. Because right now, most of the remarketing is based on those same third-party cookies that will be gone. So while the approach is very theoretical, and I mentioned the Facebook, let me just focus a bit on what happened to Facebook, because it was the biggest impact towards e-com advertisers who used to rely on Facebook, and how it will spread across other channels, and what, in our experience, users are doing to mitigate this. So before iOS 14, everything was good. To start running ads on Facebook, you would grab the Facebook pixel, you would place this Facebook pixel into your web store or integrate it through multiple plugins, and basically Facebook will do the rest for you. You'll see your view content, add to carts, initiate checkouts, purchase. You'll build a Facebook scaling strategies based on your numbers, and most of you would get successful results. When iOS 14.5 hit Facebook, it stopped measuring some of the events. Basically, before it was all green, after some events are just gone from Facebook. And on top of that, Facebook also started to model the reports between of the data he received and the data he showed to you. And similar things are actually happening across other channels. And if you do just not only Facebook, but you do Google, maybe you do TikTok, maybe you do Pinterest, in the end, you run into a very specific situation that across the channels you have, the numbers just don't match. Your Shopify backend data is not matching your channel performance data. And you need to switch from hard facts to guts. You need to do approximations and you need to make decisions manually again. But if you don't have the right data to make those decisions, basically you're left with the black box and your performance drops. So, what everybody said to do to fix the issue? They decided to switch to old and trusted analytical tools, and customers with more sophistication, they went for the trackers or attribution solutions. For analytical tools, I will start with probably explanation of the very basic principle is Google Analytics. So before that, everybody would rely on data in, for example, Facebook. Now everybody starts to cross-check the data between Facebook and Google Analytics and find what actually is working for add to cart, initiate checkout, purchase. What does Google Analytics allow? First and foremost, everybody remembered that there are UTMs or tracking parameters, started to use those parameters across all their ads, across all their channels, and started to analyze the performance in Google Analytics based on UTMs. And the best part, if you was using Facebook or using the UTMs and Google Analytics, you can back doing breakdowns across more than one dimension and seeing how your data performs. And yes, you can collect data outside of Facebook, and actually, the data in analytics seems to be more accurate, because based on our experience talking to users, than compared to the data in Facebook. However, it still doesn't fix a couple of key issues. One is cross-browser attribution. It's very important to understand that whenever everybody or anybody clicks an ad in Facebook app or an Instagram app, and that's where most of the traffic is coming from, and that's why Facebook was impacted way bigger than, for example, Google. Uh, the visitor is being taken to your web property, whether it's Shopify store, website, landing page, in Facebook or Instagram or TikTok web view browser. But then quite a lot of people would just click open in Chrome, and this creates a new browser session with fresh set of cookies, with clean UTM tracking parameters, meaning analytics is not tracking, this is Facebook traffic, and your accuracy of reporting goes down. This goes down statement is very relative because it really depends on the behavior of your visitors. For some, it may be 5%, for some, it may be 30%. But it's happening, and analytics, at least the one that most people are using now, has no means to solve it. Then there is another issue. When you start running campaigns, it is important for you not only to see the conversions, but also the cost of the conversions. And there is no meaningful, reasonable way to get Facebook costs into Google Analytics, especially real time. So we start to lose decision-making power. We still need to do exports, matching of the data, and it takes time that you could use elsewhere. And then, if you're just using analytics without any other things, without leveraging the backends of Shopify, maybe you cannot do it. You start to get issues with sending data back to Facebook because you still need to do this to run reports, to run optimization, to feed Facebook machine learning with the power of the data. And same is applicable across all the other channels. Google, Facebook, TikTok, etc. This is the reason for many e-com advertisers, the analytics is just the first step to the journey to switching from third-party pixels to their own data. And they go with the tracking solutions or attribution solutions, whatever you want to call them. Basically, they allow the same stuff as analytics, same UTM tracking, same reports with breakdown across multiple dimensions. But now we got into the fun stuff. They typically have built-in API cost updates, API conversions, postbacks, and multiple other API integrations across multiple channels. And they successfully handle cross-browser attribution because they have access to the data that is being collected through their channels. And this brings us to the next very important question. So, okay, e-com marketers are switching from third-party data, that's basically something provided in the interfaces of Facebook, to collecting data on their own. That's the data they collect through analytics or through trackers. But the question is, do they own the data? And I would say that it's a very open question, both for analytics. For them, I think they don't own the data because they can get it only in the aggregated manner. For trackers, it really depends on what is your arrangement with the solution and what solution provides you with. Because if you just see the reports, there is no way to organize, to restructure, to remeasure the data, or to export this data to the tools that you will need in the future. Then you also don't own the data, you just see the reports. So, how to understand who owns the data and if you can work with it on a daily basis? Let's get back to the question that we raised in the very beginning. What is first-party data? First-party data sits in the middle between your data from your marketing channels, again, CRMs, that sits inside CRM. You probably own it. Web property data that sits inside your analytical tools. Then the performance data or marketing required data. That's information about how your paid channels perform. That's how your referrals perform. That's how your search campaign perform. And then the information about enriching the data from third parties, whether it's cross-device attribution, whether it's traffic, remarketing data, and you need a place to store this data. In our opinion, that's the way the whole industry will be shifting next year, that multiple tools will pop up that will allow marketers to independently accumulate and store the data they own. And you can say, yeah, we have tools like now, like from amazing tools like Supermetrics, Improvider, Funnel.io, and multiple others. But the trick is that they still mostly deal with the aggregated data. So let me explain it in 2 easy steps. Number 1, we need to come to a place where you store all the data from your channels, from your web properties, from your backend. I need to store all the data in a consistent manner so you can remodel, reanalyze, and use it. And of course, it should not cost you arm and leg. It should be solution meaningful for a business, especially if you're not an enterprise, you run regular operations, you don't have people doing the coding, extra people doing the coding, extra people doing data normalization, and you don't want to pay for the solutions. So you need to choose with somebody who provides you aggregated data or somebody who provides you with raw data that you can actually own. So what's the difference between other channels that can feed the data into your own independent data storage? There are 2 types. Again, like I mentioned, aggregated data, and I call it own data because I think that when the data comes raw into your first-party data platform, that's the only case when it's really owned by you. So let's start with the aggregated from third parties. It means that you employ a tool that treats the data from Facebook. I mean all data from Facebook, clicks, costs, conversions, campaign splits, etc., and feeds into that storage. And it does the same across all other channels, and it also feeds the data from your Shopify on that aggregated level. And then what the solution do it, they call it normalize the data. So they try programmatically or automatically make sense of that very equations that we showed to you, 11 plus 10 plus 10, because that data will aggregately ingest from those three sources. And then we have 27 from Shopify. So they will apply some normalization, some machine learning, and drop conversions from either from here, or from here to make sure that the numbers are matching. Because there is no way you can get more conversions that you aggregated compared to the actual bottom line numbers. That's where you get the money. Why? It's not ideal because that approach is probabilistic, not deterministic, meaning you get approximate picture. That's how you get now the numbers with Facebook reporting. So it's almost accurate, but if you have large data sets and if that probabilistic will shift that 10%, which might not be wrong, to a different channel or different allocation, you may make a bad campaign optimization decision, which will impact your bottom line numbers. And it happens because aggregated channels do not have raw data. They aggregate the data, they create those data feed pipes that push it into one place, normalize this data, process it, apply machine learning, and then show you the reports. They are very close to truth, but they're still the result of approximation. And also because of that, because the data comes in the aggregated level, there is no way you can easily recalculate and remodel, because it means they will need to re-ingest all the data, renormalize this all the data, and then recalculate and build new results, making all those systems very expensive for regular users. And because the data is aggregated, again, it's very hard to filter out a specific event. Of course, if you're talking about the conversions, you have all your customers listed, that's fine. But if we start talking about particular clicks, particular device, particular visits to websites that are not yet hardly associated with your bottom line customer number, there is no easy way to enrich this data or exchange this data. Meaning, by the time third-party cookies will be gone, you will lose the ability to exchange the data with third parties for their marketing purposes, because all your widgets, unlike all your purchases, are on aggregated level, and there is no easy way to single out a widget unless it's associated with the purchase or specific conversion event. And as you well know, out of your data, not all your visits convert to purchases. And it also means that you'll still need to build a customer data platform to mix that aggregated data with customer data, and you end up having media buying tools. You'll end up having data aggregation and normalization tools. You'll still end up having a CDP platform, and you'll still end up having some sort of reporting engine that will show all the data in the way you can consume as a user, which means multiple tools are difficult to make changes and expensive. I think that the real way to do it is to actually keep developing the solutions that allow you as a marketer to have your own data. By own, we mean that you collect it independently and you have access to raw logs. So actually, each and every visit, click, conversion is recorded as an event and processed and then displayed in your system. And you, as the owner of the tool, you have access to those logs, can reorganize the way the system interacts with those sets of raw data and in, generate insights from the data. So that's why I don't like that famous phrase from Zuckerberg, Senator, we run ads. Facebook doesn't run ads. Facebook is a huge pipe that allows you to run ads through Facebook to some other people. So the data that you generate doing this belongs to you. You should have means to manipulate it. It also becomes critically important when in the future, without third-party cookies, you would like to somehow retarget a person you got from Facebook to your website across Google Web Properties or across Pinterest Web Properties, again, without using third-party cookies. If you don't have those raw visits stored, identified, processed, cataloged, and assigned some IDs, there is no way you'll be able to do it. And another benefit of this data is more deterministic than probabilistic, because uh, as you start to collect the data independently, you will have each click, each conversion, each page view recorded by your own means on your site and stored by you, which gives you additional opportunities to recalculate the data and, as I mentioned, exchange it with third parties and enrich on individual anonymized either user level or even visitor level, for example, for the future retargeting purposes. And naturally, if we go this way, the same data combined with customer data expands into the CDP platforms. So right now, when customers doing the switch from analytics to trackers and attribution solutions, if they do the choice right, they actually do the switch from aggregated to own data, because most ad tracking and commercial attribution solutions are built at handling each individual click, page view, conversion, and then matching them using unique IDs. That's how those markets operate. They are not yet widespread because the issue with the death of third-party cookies just became apparent some 10 months ago. And the market is so huge, number is so huge that it is very slow to shift. And of course, all those trackers, they cost money, and Google Analytics is still free unless you're buying the paid version, which gives you access to logs. So what is happening now is that e-com advertisers are actively switching either to analytics, the bigger ones, they're switching to ad tracking and conversion attribution solutions that are available multitude in the market already. You just need to start looking. However, what will happen next year or next 12 months, we can say so, is that the market will start evolving from ad trackers to the mix of ad trackers and customer data management platforms, because this movement is driven by you as the users of those tools. You, of course, care about your performance data, but you also care about even more granular data about your customers and how to connect your performance data with your customer data, uh, model LTV or the value of all those visits, and then feed this data back to the origins, Google, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, your partners, whatever channels you have, to improve and optimize your results. So the future of the next 16 months, in my opinion, is that all those ad tracking and conversion attribution solutions that are available on the market right now will be expanding, at least some of them will try to, into the space of customer data platforms. And I believe it's good because it will mean that those solutions you have now that are very expensive will, well, those solutions will not become or will cost cheaper, but new generation of solutions that allow you to manage both your marketing campaign performance data and your customer data in one place will emerge. And they're because they're using new generation of technologies to process big data, to handle high load of information, those solutions will become affordable for mid-market and SME companies, and probably will be affordable even for SMB companies compared to typical CDP or complex solutions that are operating now. What it will mean? It will mean that you as a digital media buyer will have a single source of truth to do your channel measurement, to consolidate data across all your performance channel and your bottom line numbers, to track not only the final performance, but extend the final performance into customer journey performance and LTV analysis. And not only you'll own the data, but what's most important, you'll own your IDs. And when the cookies will die, the IDs of the visitors or the customers, of course, anonymized IDs, will be used for matching, for exchange, and doing all those other things that are happening so easy now, like remarketing, like audience enrichment, like maybe cross-device attribution. And most importantly, owning the data will also mean that you have tools to decide who has access to the data, when a third party has access to your data, and how this data exchange happens. It also means that it will put you in compliance with current and growing regulations. Because right now, let's put it in this way, when you put Facebook Pixel and you are GDPR compliant, you just need to hope that the customer would allow you marketing cookies or advertising cookies, which most people right now don't do because by default, you give them this essential cookie message, which covers your first party data, not third party access to it. And people just go with essential cookies, stripping you out of that key information that you need for decision making. So, in my opinion, despite all the I'd say floor plate level changes in digital marketing, the future is bright, the technologies are emerging, and by the time the Google will introduce its privacy sandbox and shutting down third-party cookies, you as marketers will have an array of tools to choose from to allow you both ad tracking, conversion attribution, and customer data management from single platform, making your all activities probably even easier than they are now. I hope those insights were useful, and I'm ready to proceed with the questions and maybe share some specific insights into technology, into how all those things happen, or just answer other questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. So let's see what we have questions and answers. So yeah, quite interesting presentation on all the tracking things that we can do for the future as everything is changing. So let's see as well. Please put any questions in the Q&A area. We've got still...
Like I typically do in our other live streams, I can see that there are at least 80 people watching us right now. So I bet some of them have questions, and there is like, you can drop those questions. I believe there is no such thing as stupid question. I believe there are questions that were not asked.
Exactly.
So if you want to know everything about first-party data tracking, how Facebook has changed, why Google is not sending Google Click IDs with all that traffic, if somebody has noticed, feel free to ask.
Good. Alice, I see in the questions, there was one question here in the chat. What would you say that the future of employment would be with gaming playing an important variable?
Well, that's a bit off topic for what we're doing right now. What of the future will be for employment as game playing? Am I right to read the question?
Yeah, sounds like it. Maybe the idea behind it is maybe actually that how is games going to be playing in the area of tracking. When you think of it, so many kids playing games, Roblox and all these other games, and they have, of course, use as well in advertising and other kind of features, maybe to even sell. Because when you think of it, these games monetize their business by selling you add-ons like animals or tools that you can use in the games. And of course, they might eventually decide, okay, let's add as well advertising. And then we, as company that wants to promote something, let's say we're selling USB drives or other kind of stuff, then we will run there an ad. But of course, the thing is, can we actually track that kind of thing to find out, did we get now through this game more clients or through that game, or was actually our blog much better or our Twitter post?
Well, yes, and that's what even our customers doing this right now, because for example, those iOS 14 don't track limitations, they exist within the apps, right? So whenever somebody clicks an ad, unless he's taken to another app, then we'll leave it aside. But usually he's taken to a browser, which is now governed by cookies, and tracking is built by cookies. So if you switch to first-party data, first-party cookies, you basically collect your data independently. You bypass the limitations, because you don't even bypass, you don't violate the limitations, because somebody on your website and mention those UTM parameters. Those UTM parameters actually allow you to know, okay, this was that game, even that ad space in that game. So you know exactly which ad brought you clicks to the website, and how those clicks on the website converted, and how much revenue you generate from those websites. And if to make it dealing with those uh, game developers, you are using some channels, then the cost data will be aggregated. You'll be able to update that cost real time via API. That's what's happening right now. And know, okay, that particular game is actually costing me money, but giving me clicks. But out of those clicks, not even purchase, I don't have add to carts. So you create an automated rule, and you stop running ads in that game immediately. So treat it this: games are just another channel to deliver ads. If we're talking about ads that have been clicked, of course there are ads that are not being clicked. There are very complex promotions that work to brand awareness, to reach. We're not talking about them. We're here talking about performance marketing. In performance marketing, that's somebody saw your ad, made a click, went to website, hopefully made the conversion, or you got to that particular person through remarketing, through some abandoned cart tools, etc. If we see games like this, then it's just another channel. And yes, the number of channels will keep expanding and keep growing, but the principles will remain the same. To get from point A to point B, you need to make a click, because that's how you get from one web property to another. As soon as you make a click, this data is being passed, the parameters are being passed, because that's, at least for now and near future, how web operates. And then you can read those parameters, you can save this data, you can use it as your own data, first party data, and you can start making tracking and making decisions.
Good. So our next question here is, do you know of any research to help track online advertisements and websites that do not use cookies?
Well, if there is no cookie, then there are other ways to, first of all, any good tracking solution combines two things: server-side tracking and first-party cookie. Server-side tracking is used to send information from your web property to the server and save it there, and cookie is used to connect the sessions between each other. So we can, of course, drop cookie from the equation and start using other identifiers like fingerprints. And fingerprints are working fine for now, because the information that is available about your device between your location, your IP address, your browsing system version, your operating system version, your browser, etc., turns it quite a unique combination, and that's why it's called fingerprints. However, it also means that if there is no way to connect sessions from one to another, only those fingerprints, it becomes less reliable because then you can switch the device. Well, that's of course you can switch the device, but you can even go from the work Wi-Fi and work IP to your home IP, and that will be a different fingerprint unless you do it on the city level. So it now gets to the point that yes, there will be no cookies, there's still fingerprints. And this is the primary reason why um, Google Privacy Sandbox not only blocking third-party cookies, they are actually trying to standardize those user information from the fingerprints to make it non-unique, so that yes, this is Android phone with Chrome browser. That's all I know. It cannot get any finite or finite details to make it a unique identification. Because no, it's Android phone, it's Chrome browser is sufficient for all the other apps to know and to run properly, but is not sufficient to create a unique fingerprint and track me across all the other systems. So to answer questions, right now, somebody who is not using cookies is using fingerprints. And I would say typically this solution would use both because it gives you two channels of data to compare and do some assumptions. With the privacy sandbox rolling out, first-party cookies will be more reliable, and meaning if somebody is not using first-party cookies, he is losing access to the data in the same manner that users are losing access to the data when somebody blocks tracking cookies or blocks third-party cookies, accepting that GDPR pop-up alert.
Good. Do we have any more questions at the moment? I don't see any, but yeah, maybe people are currently thinking about the next question. Yeah, so we've had all this information about tracking and what's coming towards us and how maybe best to use other options to find ways to use tracking and analytics in a more purposeful way. So we've got the next question. More general question from your perspective, the end of the third-party cookies will bring the better future for the market or not? And what are the biggest advantages and disadvantages of this change?
Well, in my personal opinion, uh, the death of third-party cookies, and let's put it this way, all third-party or cross-site tracking will not bring short-term positive gains to the market because the whole ecosystem, as we know it right now, was built around free information exchange uh, between different actors of the systems. What was bad about it is that the actual owners of the information, like us, the people who see the ads, or advertisers who run those ads, had little access to that exchange and were not part of the game. They were stripped of those abilities. So, if the control of the information will go back to me when I see the ad, or me when I run the ad, giving me the same options for remarketing, retargeting analysis, then the change will be positive. And in my opinion, it will happen with a small gap where things will be negative because everybody would need to adapt and change things how they do. I've seen this last year when everybody was laughing about iOS 14.5 and Facebook until April 28, when Facebook hit the first switch, and then until July, when Facebook hit the second switch, and data became unreliable, and everybody was running, crying, "Wow, what should we do?" And people still running out asking, "What should we do?" So if the business will treat that shift from third-party data and death of the third-party cookies seriously, and start preparing now, then we'll not see this gap of negative impact until everybody will realize it is serious and will reorganize and re-engage. But if we'll still believe that Google will postpone Privacy Sandbox from 2022 to 2023, then it will postpone it next year and will do nothing to prepare, then the shift will be very negative, at least short term. things will stop working as they used to be, and it will impact the bigger part of the internet compared to that iOS 15.5 change and Facebook. I'm not sure if we can hear you. At least I don't.
So our next question is, in your experience, the best DSP, SSP, etc. for in-app activity? He is trying to convert for sportsbook market, but the CPMs sometimes are quite high and they are not bringing many conversions.
Well, first of all, I'm in a bad place to advise any traffic sources because I don't do active media buying. And this is something that comes from experience. What you need to understand is that how DSPs are operating, they push your ads very, very, very wide. And you get a lot of traffic. And it doesn't mean that if you pick right targeting options, the traffic is targeted. In my opinion, you need to think about the DSP as a very huge, even blind network. And either you prepare to invest a lot of money upfront and then carefully blacklist placements that are not working and whitelist placements that give you good results, or you just don't go DSP way because that's a lot of it's the huge access to a huge audience. And if you're talking for something small, something niche, and this particular DSP would not provide you with those instruments, and like I said, I don't know. Well, I know, but my information is very outdated from the times I was doing DSPs. It's like 5 to 6 years outdated. I'm not in a position to share it unless you find a very niche specific DSP with niche traffics. Then yes, you will have high CPMs and low outcome because DSPs are not often good for performance campaigns unless you invest a lot of money first, filter out through traffic, uh, keep only things that work, and then double down on the budgets only for placements that are working. So that's my opinion. It's not an exact answer to the question. It's more like an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Good. So we've got still 2 minutes left. And if there are no questions, otherwise we'll close the session.
So looks very good. We have 2 minutes to go, no questions, but we still have 80 people watching us.
Yeah. Here comes one. I have one more. Okay. Question is coming.
Good.
Yeah. From Christopher. So, yeah. Okay. How to target audiences better via DSPS? Any quick tip?
Yes, the best and quick tip actually build good relationships with the account managers of your traffic providers, especially with DSPs. Because if you go for self-serve, you are at your own because each system has its own rules for targeting, for capturing the right audience. So try to get hold of the account manager of that system, ask him questions. Those are the people to share real insights because they deal with dozens, maybe hundreds media buyers like you in that particular system and can share insights. Second best way is to talk to the media buyers who are successful doing the same on the same platform. Why I'll tell the second best way, because if somebody running good on a particular platform, he is unlikely to create a competitor for himself. While account managers are well being paid for the result they generate, and they're very happy to share insights and create more and more competitors for the traffic they have. So my advice: get hold of and talk to account managers.
Great. So that ends the session. Thank you very much, Vlad, for giving us this presentation. And thank you to all our listeners and viewers for being here and focusing on this session of performance marketing. See
Thank
you
you very
in the
much.
next session.